Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello, universe and everyone out there. We are the Simulationist podcast. My name is Josh Treleaven.
I'm Ryan Kirkby, although I wonder if we shouldn't just regulate that down to like cyberspace. It's very hard for the rest of the universe not attached to the internet to actually get a hold of us.
Well, it's my philosophy that eventually the internet is going to permeate the entire universe because there's going to be Wi-Fi everywhere, and you'll be able to access all the archives and everything. So I'm picturing a future universe in which aliens are listening to this very podcast and being quite confused.
I'm going to take a spin on that one. I'm picturing aliens mooching off like Starbucks Wi-Fi as to learn about humanity. Instead of, doing like anal corings of cows and all sorts of really weird stuff you keep hearing the conspiracy guys talk about. No, they're just going to be leeching the Wi-Fi to learn about humanity in the quickest, most expedient way. So, okay, maybe they hook that up to the alien version of the internet, and then they get a chance to look through. Although I must admit, if you're leeching Wi-Fi from Starbucks, sort of thing, you're going to have a hard time getting enough for all the aliens.
I think Starbucks is fine with you using their Wi-Fi.
Well, yeah, but if you're going to effectively hook it up to the entire alien internet sort of thing, you're going to have like all the aliens trying to access the information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus, if you don't buy any coffee, they might not. Yeah, that might not be good.
And let's face it, if they're alien, coffee might just very well be a poisonous substance for them. So that leaves them with like the sticky buns and water. And I'd like to think aliens are smart enough to not need to buy water.
Technically, any substance is a poison, including caffeine and chocolate, in large enough doses.
Yes, but given the fact that they would be an alien species from a planet that grew up completely independent of Earth, it could be that all earthly substances act as a poison to them.
Ah, everything.
It is one of the fears scientists, xenobiologists in particular, have about life on other planets, is that all substances being derived from perhaps even different nucleic acids are completely insoluble, incompatible, and basically completely toxic to the human system. So you could land on a planet that's ripe with life, riotous in all its colors and forms, and anything you eat would be poisonous.
I guess so. That's the big thing about oxygen and oxygen atmosphere is that basically the early Earth had an atmosphere that wasn't oxygen because oxygen would have killed all those early
methanogenic creatures. Yes.
Yeah, and then gradually they expelled oxygen. I don't understand the whole process, but
from what I've been told, it works like it started off methanogens.
Okay,
they used up the methane stuff, and then it worked over to carbon dioxide, and
over to carbon dioxide
they converted it up over to the oxygen.
And then to oxygen.
Of course, mind you, those creatures are technically plants and trees for the most part. So there are creatures, but not as most people refer to them as. So.
Yeah, creatures. Yeah. And so oxygen is a super
it's one of the
scary...
most corrosive things on in the periodic table, and we breathe it. We need it to live. We are the aliens from the Alien series, man. We are the xenomorphs.
We're like dragons of some kind, or something. Yeah, because they have acid blood while we breathe oxygen.
We breathe a corrosive substance.
Take that, aliens listening to this podcast far in the future.
And please don't ever torrent a copy of Science. We apologize for that one. And we don't believe you're actually like that. You would never nakedly attack the acid planet.
So I will...
Maybe, I don't know, because I kind of like the concept of, like, the aliens being so, like, they look skinny, but them being, like, so, like roid rage. Like, people, yeah, let's go attack the acid planet. And let's attack the species that are made of, like, 70 to 80% acid. Wah! They spit acid. They drink acid. Wah! Let's attack them and let's be naked. They have things called doorknobs. We can't even open those. Let's go for it.
It's like extreme sports, like Jackass alien version where they go to Earth.
Dude, I would totally have had my mind actually blown if the ending of Signs was it was just like the alien version of Jackass, them messing around.
Huh,
I would have loved that.
That would have made it a better movie. Almost any change would have made it better, but...
It was okay up to the ending when you realized the aliens were dissolved by water. Or... you could work that in with, like, they weren't really aliens. They were the descendants of the Munchkins from Oz. They've switched to the high-end practice of witchcraft, and thus natural water melts them all.
So, yeah, they're like the witch, and
yeah,
turned into sugar or something like that.
I don't know.
Are we made of sugar, partly? We
have a lot of sugar in our system. And actually, as the aging process works on our bodies, it's not unlike a caramelization. Well, with free radicals going in there. There's some interesting parallels. You effectively caramelize, and that's your aging process.
Is that why old people have that weird smell?
One of the reasons, yes. It's one of the better reasons they've got it.
I just picture old ladies with, like, caramels in their pockets and... But maybe
is that caramel in their pocket, or is that just bits of them budding off? Oh, wow, I think I've come up with an awesome short story idea about creepy old people.
Hey, yeah, maybe that could be like the witch from Hansel and Gretel or something like that.
Forget the witch from Hansel and Gretel. This is something that'll give Stephen King nightmares.
Oh, good. Well, I hope he listens to this podcast, too.
Or at least reads the resulting short story I have just formed in my mind.
Okay, yeah.
I have to put that out one time. Just let it out onto the written word.
Yeah, get that out there. I should mention the number of this podcast is number 18, and right. We are recording this on January the 8th of 2013.
Yes.
Just for the record. I don't know why I even need to record that, but...
Well, it's good to know for people in the future sort of thing, if they're just picking this sort of thing up, Plus, for those who have been paying attention for a while, that does mean we are 2 weeks away from revisiting the topic of luck in the context of a gaming system, and working up something for more concrete for luck elementals, or pseudo-elementals.
Yeah, you wanted to prepare something for episode 20. Wow, that'd be cool.
Well, it's a natural 20 for the episode, unmodified. I think it's worth something we should, spend a little bit of time and effort on.
Although, as a dozenalist, I think there's less special about the number 20 because it's only 1 dozen and 8, or 8 zine, or whatever, in dozen also. That would make this episode 1 dozen and 6 zine.
That's not bad. It's like halfway through on the base 12 system.
Yeah, we're 1.5 dozen, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, that's decent.
There you go. See? So it's a special episode there. I like to think they're all special in their own way.
Actually, yeah, that's true. Every number has something really cool associated with it. And 20 is special because when you play Dungeons & Dragons and other games, you have that all-powerful D20, or D8 zine, as I would call it. But still, it's still an 8 zine is a good number.
Yeah. I like to think it's got something special, and there's a reason why, the die 30 is entertaining but not often used.
Yeah. Well, it's too bad. That's something we got to rectify sometime, but I don't know if today... Well, yeah.
All right. That's something for another day, though. We'll come back to that maybe around episode 30.
We could do a whole episode on just different kinds of dice. I think other people have done that, but we could just go through them.
Well, see, that's the thing, because I think we could, because there's some interesting factors. Like, one of the reasons I have a die 30, but I don't use it often, is because it has so many sides, it's hard to tell from a rolling a ball. It just doesn't stop the same way a 6-sider would.
Yeah. But also, like, I find, after having rolled higher, like, a D12, I think, is perfect for the rolling factor of it, because when I roll a D6, it feels like it's too dead.
Clunky.
Yeah, just clunks around.
I must admit, I do like the 8 through 12, particularly for how they roll nicely, but without just stopping all of a sudden. but sometimes you need a wider range of variants.
Yeah.
But yes, I think you did have a very nice topic for this week to discuss.
Okay, so our semi-official topic of discussion this week, I wanted to talk about boundaries, and I guess I'll leave that fairly vague, and we can start to poke at it a little bit, because there's physical boundaries, like, the mountain ranges in the world and things like that, and
or sometimes
borders.
just a cliff at the edge. Maybe when you get to the edge of the DM's map, there's literally just a cliff there. It ends.
Well, and video games too. Like there's boundaries.
Waist-high walls. Or at the edge of the map.
Edge of the map. Or there's some asteroids where if you go off the edge, you just come on the other side. Something like that.
Oh yeah, that weird whatever they qualify it as shape for the world in the Final Fantasy, where going north eventually hits you to the bottom of the world.
I was reading about that too, about on some forum, I can't even remember where it was, but they were saying that if you map the left and right side of the map, the east and west side, so they loop around, and you map the north and south sides, you don't get it's not exactly a sphere. It can't be a sphere.
I think it's a torus.
Square
is
map.
what it effectively
Yeah,
works
that's what
out
somebody
to,
was saying, is a torus, and I couldn't fit in my brain. I might have to just play around with some paper, I guess, to just get it.
Well, figure this. You can figure the east-west thing, because that's how our world works, right?
Yeah, and you can make a cylinder, and that's how the Civilization worlds in Civilization, the video game works, yeah.
Well, I think for them it's simply because they don't want to have to deal with various mercurial projections and all that and weird differences that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think it actually adds anything to the gameplay that way. So for them, effectively, a cylinder is all the world needs to be.
Yep.
Then you just imagine that the two ends of the cylinder wrap around and clank together, and then bam, you've got your torus world.
Then it's a torus. But that's just so, that's so weird. And I was reading about physics too, and this, I don't know where this came from, but somebody, posed the question, when you look at a mirror, left and right are reversed, or basically the right side reflects the right side, left side reflects the left side, but top and bottom are are not reversed.
So it's not upside down.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the question is, why is that, or explain why that is, and that. I mean,
it's a mental illusion, because for you, the right and left seem reversed, but for your mirror image, it's right left as proper.
Yeah.
Figure that one. That's something that's going to keep you tossing and turning when you're trying to sleep. It's just one of those things that seems weird initially, but isn't. If you look at a record player, the old 45 LP, things, it has to turn at the same rate from the outer part as it does from the inner part.
Yeah.
So the outside has to move faster than the inside, but it's still one piece and it has to move at the same pace.
That's right.
So how can it move at a different speed when it's one piece?
When it's all one piece. Well, I can't explain. It's
just the way you set things up. It makes it seem weird. If you look at a mirror, sort of thing, and just imagine yourself outside of the situation, left and right seem to be reversed because you're projecting yourself into the mirror image of you.
Okay, well, sure.
It's one of the things where left and right are things that are subjective. Because you are facing me, the left side of the room is the complete wrong side of the room for me. My left side of the room is your right. Whereas things like up and down tend to be much more, I won't call them universal in this case, because you can make arguments about standing on your head.
Yeah.
But by and large, because we operate on a mostly uniform area that has gravity, down is whichever way gravity falls.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that our eyes are on that horizontal plane and not on a vertical plane. If we walked around...
Well, you could tilt your head to the side.
And then up and down would be left and right. But would a mirror wouldn't seem reversed? Let me see. If you turned your head on the side, would the top become the bottom? And no, that doesn't work that way, I don't think.
No, the top becomes left, and the bottom becomes, the other way. Or vice versa, depending on whichever way you tilt your head.
Oh, and that would change your... Yeah, because I think it must be how your eyes are arranged. Or maybe...
It's one of the weird things, because the eyes are incredibly... from an evolutionary point, they're incredibly ancient and very easy to fool, based on how the... mental software goes. Like how you can get confused by seeing the words of a color written in a different color and being told, say the color of what you're reading as opposed to the writing it says.
Yeah.
So where green is written in red, you start having a hard time with that. It's because your eyes work on a much more primal level than your higher brain.
Well, it's true primal level, but it's like they're doing all that work that you would have thought you'd have to be conscious to do. They're doing all kinds of crazy analysis and what color is this? What does this say? Like they're basically it's not just your eyes. It's your brain, like whatever visual center of your brain.
There's a lot of mental software in there.
So it's basically, it knows how to read and it knows how to distinguish color and things like that.
So that's the thing. I mean, I've got a month-old kid right now, and from what I've been hearing from the doctors, is she's still learning to focus for depth. That's something that you have to learn.
Yeah.
For you or I, it's so intrinsic. As you look about the room here, you see everything properly. Well, you better than me. My prescription is a little old for my glasses.
Yeah.
But you see everything, and when you look at things, you don't even need to focus. Like, I need to focus my eyes to this depth.
Well, yeah, my vision is not the best. I can't read things across the room.
But it is not like when you're panning across the room, you don't see things and focus at the appropriate depth that they are.
Yeah, that's true. I've noticed, though, when I get really drunk...
Well, that's because you've got alcohol in the system. All things are off the table then.
But I have to be pretty drunk to lose actual depth perception.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's it. It's one of the bits that when your brain starts getting depressed from the depressant that is alcohol, it starts taking out the higher end functions at the top, and then it starts working its way in.
I wonder, there might be something...
Which is why when you get really stinking drunk, you'll pass out and lose control of your bladder. It's one of the things that happens last, because it's one of the things that's so ingrained in you. Bladder and bowel control.
That's true. Wow, the brain sure does a lot of stuff without us even thinking about it.
And thank goodness for it. Do you know how little progress we'd make if we had to consciously regulate all this stuff? Hold it, breathe, breathe, focus.
I don't know, I keep thinking, like, if you practice that, it would become unconscious, and then we'd be at the same place we are. So maybe that's what
that is what has apparently happened.
Yeah,
yes,
with a newborn baby, they're basically figuring all that stuff out.
Well, so that's the thing. That's the thing. Is the interesting part about subconscious is it's not really subconscious. It's not like you have a basement in your brain. It's just everything that's become so ingrained into you, you do not require conscious thought.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. There's a lot of negative things a lot of people are thinking of. They don't even realize they're thinking the negative things.
Yeah, that's true. I remember the other day I was noticing, too, and I because I heard this on the radio somewhere else, some other podcast, I'm sure, was talking about blank spots when you drive to work, and this happens to a lot of people. You'll drive to work, and then you'll forget, you know your route pretty well.
Yes.
And you forget certain sections of it. You're like, I don't remember that intersection. I don't remember that building that, there's a sign on somebody has written on their house that says Namaste. That's the Hindi word for, it's a greeting of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, Namaste. And it says that and I notice that every time, and I smile when I see it, because I like that idea. And it's got cats on it too, like painting of cats. This is on what's it? It's Tai, I think, at that point. It's Tai and Catherine.
Yes, so in Victoria for those out there.
So if anybody's listening,
keep an eye out for it.
If that's your house, I don't know. Hi, hey, how's it going?
Namaste.
I like your house. Namaste.
Yeah.
Or whatever, however you say it, I don't know. What was I talking about? So I make a note of that.
At that point in your journey. Every
time I pass there, going to work every day. And then I notice, about just it seems to be random. I won't have a recollection of going past that.
Well, that's a good sign of how good your driving's become. Effectively become semi-conscious.
I think so, yeah, and I think it happened. Like, I don't think that was unique to me.
No, it's a very common thing for drivers. And at some point in the driving skill point, how good your driving skill is as you progress, at some point it becomes a detriment to you, but by and large it's good. Because it prevents you from if you have good driving habits, it prevents you from developing bad driving habits. Like, I got to speed up a little bit to get ahead of this guy, or I'm just going to swerve in here. You take the route, you take it at the pace, you follow with the rest of the pack, as you're going down the road. No problem, no hassle.
Yeah, I suppose that's good. Yeah, rather than being amped up and full of adrenaline. And
That said, there is something to be qualified for on a more active process. I find little car games help to keep you, from zoning out.
Yeah.
Look at the license plate of the vehicle ahead of you, see the letters, and then try and find a word that uses those letters with as least little extra stuff put in.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say, though, because it is a game for me to take note of that house as I pass it, and other various landmarks, and say, there's that landmark, and I tell myself a little story about the cats and how they're, I wonder if there's a hidden cat there, and I never...
Oh, like those wolf T-shirts where there's a wolf in the moon, and there's one in the trees.
yeah, exactly. So I do kind of, it is kind of a game for me, but even as a game, I still, every once in a while zone out and just don't consciously register. Yeah. But maybe I'm seeing other things on the road. Maybe there's something else that caught my attention, but I don't remember those things.
Well, that's the thing. Is, if you have someone else in the vehicle with you, you'll be able to tell how much attention you're paying to the road by how much slower you have to go or other stuff you have to stop doing in order to listen to them having a conversation with you.
Okay.
So there is that to be to work as for we'll call it a watermark for how much attention you are paying to the road, even when you're not remembering it.
Yeah, sure.
But then there's something about, whether or not you decide to remember everything that goes on. You don't remember every bite of your meal you had for breakfast or lunch.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
just had supper with me, and my wife. Do you remember every bite of supper?
No, I probably wouldn't have remembered any of it if you hadn't brought it up.
Hey, those were good.
It was very good, but that's the thing about memory.
Because it's something that's over and done with. It's put into a small storage area in your brain. If you wind up getting sick anytime within the next 24 hours, that will be brought up again, and your mind will start dissecting. It's like, it was that weird tasting bite there. Oh, that was what did it to me. Or, it's like, I remember when I had that little cough at the first thing. That's when I first got that throat infection. That's what was going on then.
Yeah.
But if it's not used within about 3 days, then your brain just effectively just kind of dumps it out the back. Or dreams. Yeah. It just kind of bleeds out in dreams too sometimes.
Dreams are cool. That's another topic. Have we done dreams? I don't know.
No, I think that could be well used. Dreamscapes, and how to use them in various fictional media.
Yeah.
Or some various media fiction styles. Not fictional media, otherwise you get weird things like Tridio and...
Tridio?
Yeah, three-dimensional video from the Shadowrun universe. They called it Tridio.
Oh, sweet. I keep wondering why there isn't more Smellovision. Why that hasn't... Because I think it's technologically possible.
It is possible, but it's just not a demanded thing.
I demand it. If you're listening out there, inventors, I am demanding Smellovision. And that's okay. I don't mind if it smells bad.
In that case, I'll meet you halfway. I'll get you a hot plate that you can cook some foods on, and you can come over here and you can watch, the Food Network.
Okay.
And that's about as close as I can get for you, and that way you're making your own food here.
Or I could go, to the mall in the food court and just sit in the food court.
Well, okay, there's something to be said for that too, but it's just not the same as watching the television.
Yeah, no, you could.
Let's face it, not a lot of television is pretty good. Most people say television stinks anyways, whether or not you can smell it.
Yeah, television does stink.
I'll just say I'm not a fan of a lot of the reality TV.
Yeah.
Although Mythbusters qualifies as reality, so they get a wonderful pass. They're good stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Mythbusters.
But yes, I think we've gotten wonderfully off topic. Because we were talking about boundaries, and we just went right through any boundaries about talking about that. Yeah.
So there's physical boundaries, but there's also the kind of the boundaries of...
Topic boundaries, sort of thing.
There you go.
Personally, if I was at a table with a DM at the start of the adventure, I wouldn't mind them saying, These are just topics we're not going to bring up. I realize you're going to be killing a lot of goblins, a lot of orcs, and I would appreciate it if nobody brings up the socio-political ramifications of killing creatures based on their skin and taking their money.
Aww.
Yes, I can tell from your expression.
I like that stuff, and that's, well, I guess because, I don't know, maybe it'd be hippie-ish, or maybe it'd be buzzkill if people keep on bringing up that ethical issues. But to me, that's the bread and butter of role-playing, is that.
Well, I just think in a lot of campaigns you need an enemy. In this case, they are statted up as enemies in the book, and and the DM I think the DM is just going to say, hey, it's okay. I just don't have an answer for why it's okay to do this. They're just the enemies. They're just stats in the book. Go for it.
Yeah.
There's nothing big going to be revealed about that. So
and
take notes if you want.
I can enjoy a game like that, but it's not as satisfying as if I kind of immerse myself in a character, and like I was saying before, like I can be that fighter in the world who thinks about who he's running through with his blade. Because I was saying
nobody wants to be a brain dead barbarian all the time, sort of thing, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And even that's the thing. Even a brain dead barbarian would still have some kind of feelings, unless he's like worked to purge them, which I guess that can happen if they're on mushrooms or something, and they work to purge all human emotion and contact.
Well, I do know of some stories about like how they'd get hopped up on various drugs before going out into battle. But that brings another topic. Is I think the DM's fully within the right to say, you know what? No, there's no drugs in the game. There is the standard alcohol, but don't worry, nobody gets addicted to it. There's tobacco, but don't worry, no one gets addicted to it. There's no health ramifications from it. It's just not going to be discussed. It's just something you can take or ignore at your leisure.
Okay, well, I guess because if you got into something like horrible, like drug addiction, it might be a bit of a downer. On the other hand, like as far as I'm concerned, because I don't have a problem with it, I guess I see it as more like it can be entertainment. Like
I would be entertained by a campaign where you have to have an intervention for the wizard because he fought the dragon and passed out midway through, and then lost control of both his bladder and bowels. So there might be some entertainment to be had in there, sort of thing,
Yeah.
But I think the DM is fully within there, especially at the start of the campaign, just to say, if it's okay with you guys, we will be skirting these topics, and they just won't be brought up or discussed in any depth. It's just something that's just going to be there in the background.
That's true because the DM is putting a lot of work into the game, and so the DM kind of has the most say with regard to what topics get covered. But as far as like which ones to choose not to deal with and which ones are okay, and like violence is okay, but you can't talk about the ethics of it. I mean, that seems basically idiosyncratic. Like, how do you choose where to set your boundaries? It seems like
the topics
wherever.
as presented within the Book of Vile Darkness shall not be discussed in any relevance, and I would hope that the players never partake in any of them. I really don't need to see a campaign where like the barbarian is a sadomasochist. Okay, maybe once. Just like, guess what my leather armor looks like. But no, I don't think you need that. Like every time the topic is brought around.
I guess because violence.
Although a Donner Party type situation where the players are like isolated in an area, and then they start wondering, it's like we're starving. There are a couple of corpses of those those goblins we killed a month or two back. What about them? Might be entertaining to bring up like maybe once in a campaign, like once in a while, but not as something to bring up all the time. And I think especially at the time to bring up this boundary sort of thing is laid out is with DM. Players bring up what they want to discuss, what they don't want to discuss at the start of the campaign before any actual gaming takes place.
But are you really gonna go through and be like, okay, like go through a checklist and be like, okay, racism out, violent in. Talking about like ethics out. Are we going to have rape in this campaign? No, rape doesn't exist. Okay, I'm not talking about rape.
That just doesn't happen. You don't have to worry about anything. If you get knocked unconscious, nothing like that happens to you. It's okay.
Yeah,
hopefully, some of these things shouldn't need to be discussed, but sometimes it's good, to bring it up. We will be dealing with a lot of killing of goblins and orcs, as I said. So can we please not bring up potential racism topics on this? They're just the monsters for the purposes of this campaign. And I need an intelligent monster, and I just don't care to discuss the ramifications of this. It's not racism. It's just I got an enemy to fight in a game.
Fighting the enemy. If I had two DMs, basically the same DMs, equal DMs who had similar skill sets.
All other factors equal?
Other factors being equals, same sort of people in each gaming group, and I was to choose between one gaming group and another. I would rather play, with the DM who allowed, that kind of ethical discussion, even though I realize that what it does is it bogs down and people argue, and I realize that, but I kind of prefer that world where there is consequences to, it's not just that everybody gets to kill orcs and there's no consequences. It's just
there are consequences is that the other orcs want to kill you even more now, sort of thing. But beyond that, it's just. This is why I prefer fighting the more unintelligent creatures, like I was bringing up in one of the previous podcasts. Slimes, unintelligent things, fighting beasts. I'm sure somebody from PETA could probably make a decent argument about killing, stuffing, and mounting an owl bear. We brought this back for the my wizard master, so we can put it in his study, and we got a nice little owl bear thing for him. It's awesome. And I can see them saying, "Oh, that's animal cruelty." Do we really need to go through the discussion about the potential for animal cruelty every time? It's you were trespassing through the woods in its territory. You should have just tried to leave and not have killed it, and then taken its eggs and sold them on the black market.
Yeah, see, I think there's answers to this, because if something attacks you and you defend yourself, and you kill it in self-defense, fair enough. But if something attacks you and then you go out and you seek out its family and murder all its family and kill smash the eggs.
Technically, it's more humane to take the eggs after you've killed the owl bear parent and then sell them off to captivity where they may be raised, as opposed to just dying in the shell. But like I said, see, does that really need to be brought up? Because if you start ruling out, you can't attack other intelligent creatures because that brings up consequences of racism. Or I suppose technically it's more of a speciesism, as they're not really a race in the same way that human races work.
Speciesism.
We'll still call it racism for all intents and purposes, or sentientism.
Okay.
It's okay to kill this sentient creature, but not that one, because that one's got pointy ears and it's your friend. And you can't kill natural beasts because that's animal cruelty. And so you start whittling down all the things you can and can't kill because of various factors. You really cut out a lot of the potential notorious creatures for D&D, the iconic creatures.
See, as a DM, I have a very clear, I can come up with justifications for why exactly, in self-defense it's okay, it's not an evil act, but, you cross the line and it becomes evil. So as a DM, I have that all internalized. But I can also see a world in which, remember, you're playing characters, so maybe you have something against, killing owlbears or, killing animals. You might be the most PETA-ist PETA person in the world.
You could just play a druid that doesn't want to do that sort of stuff because, dude, I'm a druid. That's a natural creature. It just really doesn't feel right.
Well, I was trying to say that it's the player who has that attitude, and he comes to the game, and it's just a game, so you can play any kind of... So your character might not necessarily have that sensibility. And that's the thing, if you go
Well, that's the thing. I would not go out into the woods. I would not, say, if there was a bear in my campsite, sort of thing, I'm not going to take up a piece of metal and start smacking around at it. I mean, that's just... I know better than that, I've been educated in proper management techniques of wildlife, all sorts of areas. I would not do that. But my barbarian's going to smack that head off with a nice crit on his barbarian great axe.
Yeah, yeah. But why? Is it because your barbarian knows that stuff and ignores it, or because the barbarian is kind of a little bit dumb?
It's one part saying you're tougher than the animal, like plus potential bearskin cape when you're done.
Yeah.
And another part, it's a challenge rating 3 creature. Hey, experience points. It's a game. There are abstract reasons to fight, whether you acknowledge them or not.
Metagaming, yeah.
But
though in real life, tell me this: wouldn't you, if you got a piece of metal, and if you saw a bear, you're camping, you saw a bear, and you got a piece of metal, don't you think you would learn something from fighting that bear?
What claws rending my flesh feel like? Yeah. I would learn from it. I wouldn't do it, though. I mean, the only time I would do that is if it was threatening, like, my wife and child, sort of thing. In which case, I'd destroy that bear.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. You say that. The bear would probably kill you.
I know the side swipes.
Hey, come on.
I have fought a deer hand against hoof to a standstill.
Hey,
that's no game.
And you earned experience, and now you're using that experience in your
Actually, I knew the technique before.
Character.
No, I knew what to do beforehand because I studied it.
Okay,
I understood how the deer makes its attack pattern. It was a female deer, so it didn't actually ram with the antlers. It had none. It went up with the front hooves and does like a cycling attack. So if you go on the side, when it starts moving up, you can dodge off to the side, and then it can't maneuver around quickly enough.
But you can't tell me that, like, in the game world version of our world,
yes,
you can't tell me that you did earn no XP from that fight with the deer.
Not only did I earn XP, I got prestige from that, man.
Exactly.
Those Calgarian tourists who came into the glade and helped me and my dog get out of there in time. Oh my goodness, have they got a story to tell now.
And that's something, too, that we don't often talk about with D&D fights, and they give you 2 things. They give you experience, and they give you treasure. And that might be a skin. If it's just a bear, it's a bear skin or whatever.
Technically, the eggs might work if it's something like the owl bear. As we
exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
That could be its equivalency for treasure.
Yeah. So you get some treasure and you get experience. But the other thing you get, and maybe this is rolled into experience, but you get that great story that you can...
That's one of the things that I think the players should really make a list down of notable accomplishments. That's like the achievements we mentioned earlier. Yeah. That's your thing. Is if you keep a list of the notable things you've done. Dude, I fought a bear. Yeah. And you write that down. Then it's like, okay, I came up with a list of my 20 greatest things. I'm just going to roll a die 20 when I'm at the bar, and that's the tale I'm telling for the evening.
Yeah, exactly. And I almost think that could be, like, you know how they say, oh, well, how did you learn, like, there's a bard, and he fights a bear, and then he goes back, he levels up, and he gets a rank in diplomacy? Like, wait, what? But maybe he uses that encounter with the bear in his stories that he uses in making diplomacy checks.
Agree with me. I fought a bear and won.
Well, I think that would be an example of a low check, but
might be we're a little bit better for an intimidate.
Maybe intimidate.
Point. Yeah. Which is not to say that you can't externalize the fight of the bear as somehow representing your fight for diplomacy. But there's something there.
So have I changed your mind? Next time you see a bear in camp, you're not gonna.
I'm definitely not gonna. No.
But you'll earn so much XP.
My corpse will be slightly higher level. Yeah. No, it's not happening. Heck, if the place I work at was to be robbed, I'm giving the cash. I ain't even gonna bother fighting, even if it's only a knife. I'm not gonna tell him to come in the back and then crack him in the back of the head with whatever's handy.
You're not going to do that?
No, just take the cash. Not my cash. I'm not going to risk any part of me about that.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's that. Which, by the way, might make for an interesting encounter with goblins, eh?
Yeah.
You're going through, the goblin warrens, and then you come to, the goblin, treasure flute. This is where, the goblin thane, king, whatever they're going to term themselves as.
I like thane.
We'll call it the goblin poobah.
Okay.
Something about goblins seems like they'd take, a name like poobah. It seems like they might like it.
I don't know. Okay, well,
the Grand Goblin Poobah. Okay, well,
to keep it going, keep
yes,
it moving.
But his treasure thing, and then there's some guard, goblins there, who are guarding it, and they just say, no, take it, man. It ain't worth my life. Just take it. It ain't mine.
Yeah.
I'll go find another tribe of goblins to be with.
Well, I've run goblins basically that way before. I've had an entire you have an entire goblin warren with standard D&D room after room after room full of goblins, and like every room the goblins are like, adventurers, yeah, we're leaving. Like, you can have her treasure. We're not fighting you. I guess, I don't know, it defeats the kind of purpose, makes the dungeon a little bit less exciting, less spicy, but makes it more real.
Yeah. Then again, there's also the problem of like attacking like the kobold warrens and reaching the where they keep the eggs, and it's like, oh yeah, children and non-combatants. Woo, I feel really heroic now.
Killing all the that's happened before. Yeah.
See, that's why I think it's good to bring that sort of stuff up. Is you say, okay, listen, there's going to be a lot of like kobolds in this campaign. You're going to be attacking them. There's not going to be any of those, non-combat NPCs. They're all going to be this sort of thing. They're all going to be combat worthy, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about kids. This is just something I'm going to ignore. You're not going to find a bathroom anywhere.
Okay.
You're not going to find the kobold baby caves anywhere.
I guess it's all right if the DM kind of outlines it first. I find that idea of the campaign less interesting, less.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I do like the concept they presented in Savage Species, where every intelligent creature is to be considered as an intelligent creature. Or even something like demons are something to be considered as, you kill a demon, it's still an intelligent creature, you've committed a murder. And I've never been in a campaign like that. I do believe it would be entertaining to be done that way. But then again, there's something to be said about the classic D&D campaign where you enter a room, there are two goblins brandishing weapons, you fight them, you win, take their stuff, and continue onwards. Or you die and they take your stuff and game over.
Yeah, I remember hearing, again on another podcast, somebody was comparing like the D&D mindset with the Star Trek mindset, because a lot of people a lot of people play D&D as D&D, but a lot of other people play D&D as Star Trek, where they do bring in all this ethical stuff, and because the idea in Star Trek is all the creatures that they encounter, they're like misunderstood, or they're there's some kind of motivation behind them. There's no just pure inhuman monsters.
Heck, not even with the old Klingons. Even they still had a reason for what they were doing.
Yeah.
It was a metaphor for like the USSR and their tactics of building up allies in the Cold War. But But yes. So in that case, I think Star Trekking is a nice way of defining the whole process of something like that, is saying there'll be no Star Trekking of the races here in our campaign, all right?
There will be no Star Trek in this campaign. I'll be like, oh, I like Star Trek.
Well, I like Star Trek too, but it's just not for the purposes of this campaign. Okay, we won't be dealing with the deep issues that tend to crop up in that sort of
No
thing.
deep issues.
This is just a nice, fun, simple campaign. You go into this place, you defeat the zombies, you defeat the kobolds, you defeat the whatever it is in here, and then you collect your hearty reward, go back to the tavern, everyone cheers you, and you get some beer. And deeper plots, unfold as things develop.
Okay.
But not deep socio-economic issues going on. You won't have to worry about coming back with 10,000 gold and depleting the value of gold within the regional economy. Because, that has happened in numerous campaigns throughout the decades. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So, I think, provided it gets brought up at the beginning of the thing, so it's okay, this is what I'm expecting. Can I get you to agree to that? I think that's all good. That's a nice boundary for topics.
Sure.
But how about physical boundaries within the campaign? Because, let's face it, in a D&D campaign, you can just say, I head north.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, gee, there's nothing even known as to what is. Actually, no, here, we'll go with something different. We'll go with the Dark Sun campaign. Mm-hmm. You have your standard Dark Sun area. If you head over the mountains, if you can find a way over them, because they're pretty nasty mountains, You get there's something over there. If you head north, there's something there. There's never anything really discussed as to what's going on south. So the players could just say, we head south, and keep heading south to see what's there. But there's nothing there. There's nothing official there. I don't think it's unreasonable for the DM to say, okay, it's going to happen in this geographic area. Like, we're working with the Dale lands in this campaign, so it'll just be in the Dale lands. Can I please ask you not to leave the Dale lands for the purposes of this campaign?
Yeah.
Even though it's just sort of like an artificial boundary construct.
Yeah, well, all these sound like, I don't know, so, like, all this talking beforehand, all this, like, just negotiating about campaign worlds. Wouldn't it be easier if the DM just said, like, if when the character attempts to go, like, a certain direction, DM says, no, it doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen, and nothing you do will make it happen. Like,
see, but then you have people accusing the DM of railroading in this case. It's like, oh, I got railroaded, man. I'm not allowed to do anything I want. Whereas before you say, okay, this is just going to happen in this geographic area. The campaign takes place in the Forgotten Realms of Unther. And we're just going to be spending our time in Unther. Everyone okay with that? Okay.
I don't know. That seems like a soft version of railroading, a more insidious railroading.
I remember you having your Verdilvia campaign taking place in the demi-plane of Verdilvia, which is wonderful. There was a way out. To get out, there was a nice way of going down the river at a certain time of year, and you find yourself on its associated parent plane.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder, maybe I shouldn't have... Well,
in that case, you were saying this is going to happen in Verdilvia.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a way out, but it's going to what we're really talking about happens in the area here.
Yeah.
And I think it was basically just assumed that, we can this is where we are. We can go about where we want to in here, but it's just in here.
That's true, yeah.
In which case, your presentation of what the campaign was about, the general area, was saying, this is where we're going to be.
Yeah, and that's just often, I think the reason I ended up doing it that way was because I started the way a lot of DMs start, is by drawing a map and being like, okay, here's a land. And
filling it full of exciting places and wonderful things.
And basically I drew the map on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper initially. I drew a bigger one.
Yes, I have a picture of that, just in case you ever want to go back to it.
But I started off as an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I was like, okay, at the edge of the paper, well, I don't want to draw a hole in it, so mountains here, and like mountains here. So it ended up being mountains all around with like giants and dragons living in the mountains. But you don't go there because
giants and dragons, dude.
Yeah.
But it is one thing I've noticed in a lot of campaign maps, how it tends to work as mountains on one side, ocean on the other, and that's what prevents you from going all over the place, going all willy-nilly.
Yep.
And but there's nothing wrong with that, at least per se. But it is like a geographic boundary sort of thing, saying, no, you're not going to find out what's over on this other side of the mountains. It's just the end of the map. This is why we call it the World's Edge Mountains. Done.
Yeah. Although, like, can you imagine, like, if the campaign decided, like, the players decided, okay, we're all going to be, well, I was going to say dwarves. Yeah, I think I'll stick with dwarves.
Okay.
They're all dwarves, and they all have, like, ranks in climb or something like that. Basically, they're all, like,
mountaineering
dwarves. So then the entire, like, your campaign area could be all the mountain ranges of the world.
I would dig that. Actually,
wouldn't that be awesome?
What I wouldn't mind for a nice little, maybe a horrible, like, a 20-level campaign, just something nice and small campaign, just nice and discreet. Where, yes, the purpose of this campaign is you are, going to be in this mountain range. No one's ever crossed it. You're going to have to find a way, by hook, by crook, or by shovel and by a pickaxe, to find a way through this mountain range to discover the lands beyond.
I think that'd be cool. And yeah, you could even build almost a very dungeon-esque kind of series of passes. And
see, that's the thing. There could be dungeons there. It's like, in there, like this is where the, like with the Hobbit, this is where the orc lair here. And so, if you go in there and you fight the orcs and you find out some stuff, you can get like a map. Oh, they know about a pass that might go up this way, but it says danger, peril. What's going on there? And so one leads you to the other, and then you have your traditional dungeon-style encounters, and then you have your overland encounters, and then you have the wonderful, man versus nature conflict of trying to scale these previously unassailable mountains.
Yeah, a lot of climb checks, but. Still, I think it'd still be pretty cool.
Well, what you could effectively state for this whole thing is that some areas can only be reached if you can take 10, and get a certain result on this sort of climb check.
Yeah. It'd be cool.
So that
the
opens
party
up
was
as your level up. You can get to the
outfitted.
higher edge stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that could work out nicely.
Cool. And your boundary, imagine if your boundary was, the civilized lands are ruled by an evil king, and, so the plains, you can't go on the plains because, I don't know, there's, an evil kingdom there who hates dwarves, and you're all dwarves.
Well, that might be an interesting thing, too. It could just be that the rest of the plains really hate you freaking mortals, and they don't appreciate you in their lands.
Yeah.
Get back to your mortal lands, you stinking filthy dyer, because you die because you're mortal. I wouldn't mind that mentality. That would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
I give a polite golf clap for that.
Yeah, or you can, well, of course, forests often act as boundaries.
Especially the things that are within some of the deeper, darker forests.
Yeah.
But yes, I think with stuff like forests and the mountains, you present a nice concept of a retreating boundary. As your characters get more powerful, these physical boundaries slowly move back or away.
Yeah, and acquiring flight is a fairly major advance. Although it should be pointed out that, being able to fly over the tallest mountains is a little bit, in real life, birds can't, some birds can fly really high, but most birds won't be able to fly over mountain ranges.
I do recall an interesting story about a type of bird that as its expansion went throughout successive generations, went around the Himalayas. Half of them went northwards around the Himalayas, the other half went southwards.
Ah, okay.
And when they met up at the other side of it, they were unable to reproduce, although they were the same species. The northern bound one could mate with the ones that were on the north, could mate with the stuff that was back in their ancestral area, which could in turn mate with the ones that went south, which could in turn mate with the ones that were on the other side. Although the two who had gone through the various arc, you can imagine it to be, aren't able to breed together. It's just that weird gradient that happens.
That's cool.
Yes.
I wonder if you could do that with orc tribes or something like that, or human.
I would love
tribes.
to have some fun incorporating that, because you remember my previous topic about my migratory gargoyles and harpies. Adding things like that really adds flavor and distinctiveness to a campaign. So if you include, heck, you could work with the elves we discussed. There's a dozen different types of elves.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some fun with the political, alliances of elves, it could be the various houses and unions going on. Well, sometimes they can't have these kinds of elves join up and join houses because they just aren't fertile with one another.
Yeah.
Which I think works decently with elves, because the fertility of elves has been mentioned in so many campaign things about why they just haven't taken over the world, because they live 7 times longer, and thus they should be able to have really nice big families, and then eventually just expand outwards.
I think it's weird that elves and humans and orcs are all able to interbreed.
I don't think it's because I don't think there's anything like orc and elf are able to breed together. Human in this case acts as the center point for it, which works like the birds I was talking about. In which case you could make up an interesting campaign story about how humans are the base default. Orcs came off, from this one chute here, and elves came off from another chute there.
Yeah.
And so instead of humans being the newcomers, they are the oldest one. And that's what makes them so special. And in turn, they're all related, but the elves can't mate with the orcs, but they can both mate with humans. So,
in order to have that much diversification of the human race, it would have to be into the future of human evolution, though, right? Have to be
you just work with magic stuff.
Post-apocalyptic setting.
You could work with ambient magic stuff.
Or magic could change them. Yeah, magic can speed up evolution.
Within the changes of the various ages of mankind, as measured by even the gods themselves, there come a time of magical spikes, when the creatures who live within an area become changed by the ambient power of the magic that flows through the land. And this is what gave rise to the orcs, to the elves, and the other various demi-humans as they are now known. Which would explain why they have the name Demihumans from like 2nd edition and all that, as opposed to humanoid, or why it's even humanoid as opposed to like dwarfanoid or elvenoid.
Well, somebody must have came up with the term demi-human.
Yeah, there's demi-human and all that sort of stuff mentioned in previous editions.
Yeah.
But people were saying, well, why is it human? Why does it have to be demi-human? What's so big about the humans? Why isn't it demi-elven? And it's like, why are the half-elves called half-elves? Why aren't they called half-humans?
I'd like to know where the demi-human was first used, and whether that was in D&D or some fiction.
I think it predates D&D, but it's from the human bias. If you want to describe something that's kind of human, you can say quasi-humanoid.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really work in a campaign where maybe elves came first, so wouldn't it be quasi-elfinoid?
It might be, but also, like, if you look at our history, we don't say quasi-Neanderthal, like, or what is the Yeah, because Neanderthal would be a different species, right?
There's some debates as to whether or not they qualified as like a half other species sort of thing because of their interbreedability potentials.
Yeah.
Or whether they were an offshoot or a distinct, separate one.
Do you think elves and dwarves would be as distantly related from humans as humans would be from other branches of Homo, or do you think you have to go all the way back to what's the Australopithecus before to get a
I think they'd be
ancestor?
fairly recent, given the fact that looking at an elf and a dwarf, they're basically funny-shaped humans.
Yeah. Okay.
Dwarves are shorter, grow big beards. Elves are skinnier, grow no facial hair.
So it'd be probably before Neanderthals.
I'd put them actually about the same area as
Same
Neanderthal.
age, same.
If you want to connect it up with a real-world evolutionary time scale.
Yeah, if we want to pretend that elves and dwarves are real.
But as I gave to the whole thing, it wouldn't be that hard just to say, every once in a while, magic surge, and you change shape to match the surroundings you're in.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, magic is fine. Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Well, so I find in a campaign situation, instead of trying to bring in something like evolution, which is sometimes contentious, just say magic surge, and everyone goes, oh, okay. That's kind of awesome. So what happens for the guys who are here? And then you go, well, why don't you find out? Go hunting up there. Go find what's up there. Ooh. And then there's a reason for them to explore. They're seeking answers.
I think whenever there's something, though, contentious, like whether it's ethics or whether it's evolution or anything like that, the answer is always, to me, well, there are some people within the fantasy world who think it's this way, and there are other people who tells this kind of myths. So it's left a little bit ambiguous, like nobody really knows in the game world, except for obviously the deities know. But the priests, they might get an answer from a deity, but they might get a skewed answer, like something that's skewed in favor of their deity.
Yes, like how you talk to the Moradin sort of thing, you're probably going to get a different answer than like a Groomish.
Yeah, I think so. And because you can imagine a D&D world in which the dwarves have their own legend of how they were created, under the earth by Moradin, and Moradin created, they might even say that Moradin created all the rest of the universe, and the orcs were just some, an accident. Oh, he spilled some lava on the floor, and they dropped in some water or something and turned into the orcs, or I don't know.
I like what they did in WoW, back for the Outlands, Burning Crusades thing, is that they basically said the world was being destroyed, and so, with the magic energy, these otherwise normal creatures rapidly mutated to become the warp stalkers that you see and fight there. And they weren't there beforehand. It's just a nice way of explaining where these monsters came from that before was otherwise seen as nice and tranquil. Because you don't see those weird creatures when you're in like Nagrand. It's basically normal creatures going on, doing normal things. But in the other areas where things are looking a little harsher, that's where you start seeing, the weird creatures cropping up.
Yeah. But you can imagine the orcs having an entirely different creation story about how, no, it was Grimsh who created all of them, and the dwarves were the mistake. And
yes, the various theological differences. But, yes, as I find wow, we got really off the point of boundaries on that one.
Yeah.
But yes, I find for the purposes of discussing stuff, like how this whole flows, does it really actually add anything to a campaign unless that's like one of the focal topics? In which case, if you say no, it really doesn't add anything. It just kind of lets everybody ruminate around the table. Do we need to include it? Does it really matter?
I don't know. Yeah, because D&D, of course, is an exercise in creativity, and obviously the DM is not a novel writer, but he is a creator of stories. And
or at least partial creator. You know,
the
players
exactly.
help weave the
he's
story.
a co-creator along with the players.
We'll call it head creator, lead design.
Yeah, a lead designer. He is what he is. He's a DM, and that's his own function. And I kind of I like to approach it as whatever you can use as fodder to create interesting stories and scenarios, go for it. But I can imagine maybe that would distract from other fun stuff like slaying orcs. Yeah,
he wants to tell you a wonderful story about 4 people that went into an abandoned fortress and destroyed the foul beasts living within. Not wondering how far ago did the orcs separate out from humanity? Like what's going on there? If a Neanderthal works out this many years ago, we'll double that, and okay, it was 500,000 years ago.
But see, if I sat at the table and the DM started going off on that, I would just eat it up. I'd be like, oh yeah, this is good. This is great stuff.
See, I think it works if you want to create a campaign setting where there's something going on with the whole thing. Or to differentiate why elves are different from the dwarves and where they all come from and why the terms are as they are. But otherwise, I don't think it's necessary. And if the DM just wants to state, hey, can we just kind of focus primarily on hand, and maybe if you guys are really into this, I'll work out another little thing for you guys to work on later that involves what you're talking about now.
Yeah. Although the other thing I would do if a DM did that is I would poke it all full of holes. The more detail they add, the more I can be but that's not consistent. So, and that's where you come up with magic. Oh, it was magic. Oh, okay. Now I can't question it anymore. Yeah. Now I can't poke holes in it.
But yes, I think there's some interesting things to be done with physical boundaries. I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things about the Slayer series. It starts off with you can't basically go outside of the starting area because the evil wizard has got a magic shield up. You can't leave. There's an actual boundary there. Destroy the evil wizard. Hey, suddenly you're open up to the rest of the world. You get to go out.
That's cool.
I would actually have to watch it, which means I'll have to hunt down, pay the money, find it, watch it, and all that. But
you could almost make a giant world dungeon where each you break out of your initial town where the wizard is holding everybody captive, and then you have to break the next shell you have to break through. I don't know what it would be, but maybe there's a barrier on a road or something like that. So you have to break through barrier after barrier. And
in the end, you find out it was just more and more layers of control. You're in the Matrix.
Exactly, yeah.
Da-da-da-da.
You have to...
That's a nice way to shift genres, too, if you want to start a completely different style campaign. And then you wake up outside of the Matrix. We're switching to the cyberpunk rules now.
Yeah, plop down another book on the table. I don't know, is there a Shadowrun, I guess.
Actually, no, Cyberpunk, I think at 2020 is what...
okay.
Oh, no, I think up to 2050 now with the edition stuff. But, actual Cyberpunk predates the whole Shadowrun. Maybe not as well refined, maybe not as easy to play, depending who you talk to. But it would be interesting to shift the genre over that way.
Yeah.
Could be entertaining.
Yeah,
A nice campaign idea for someone who's got a nice idea in their head, at least.
Yeah.
But...
well, you got to keep doing that because D&D is fun and all, and it's great, but if you're running out of adventures, you got to be able to think outside the box and say, I think I'll go to a different world or a different setting, different something, just to shake things up.
Change the pace, man.
Yeah. Unless you don't have to, unless you're fine with the same pace.
Some people are okay with a single campaign that's lasted 30 years. Yeah. They're okay with that. Some people, they like to try a different game every now and then. Mm-hmm. Settlers of Catan one week. The next week they're doing a Cowboy. Maybe Deadlands. Go for the Weird West.
Yeah.
It's all good. But... so is there other boundaries we've discussed? There's the ocean, the concept of what's on the other side of the ocean.
Yeah, and that's what got me thinking of, like, imagining, like, boundaries as their own, like, you can think of the mountain range as a boundary or as the adventure area. Like, the adventure area is within the mountain range. Or, like, with the ocean, for example, the ocean, and this is true of real-world cultures, because for some cultures, the ocean is, like, that's where we stop. Like,
that's the end.
Like, yeah, we're done with the ocean. You know, we're land people. We do all this cool stuff on land. We have horses and stuff. But then there's other cultures who are like ocean, like that's
the Oceania area. It's like, wow, let's go out, let's have fun.
It's like, yeah, we're doing that.
Let's spread to all the islands we can find.
We're populating. We're doing stuff. And basically, that's the story of, you know, the Phoenicians way back, and the Greeks and the.
It's basically the story of humanity. It's just constantly exploring out further than you could.
Well, it is the story. It's the story of the humanity who ultimately became dominant.
Became us.
Because, it was the Vikings next, and they, like, took over all of Northern Europe, and then there was the Muslim empires, which were
the Islamists that expanded out and about.
They had sea empires in the Indian Ocean and stuff like that. But then what followed that was the Portuguese, and they really took off.
They did some interesting yet evil things, I will admit.
Yeah, they did some evil things. And basically, because of the Portuguese, that's why the world is the way it is today. With
you
why
can say that for a lot of other groups, you know.
Yeah.
But it goes back even before that, like when humanity left, Africa, as the various sea levels changed, and they found new routes to go out and about. The barrier was no longer there, and so they explored. Not always successfully. Some routes, apparently, they died out, and then some guys came through later from a different direction, and they stayed, and that's who's living there now, their descendants. Mm-hmm. Not the first group, but the final group was the winner. Yeah,
but it seems like the people who ultimately became dominant were the Europeans. For some, like, and obviously, like, the world is changing now. But it seems like basically European culture is still dominant, or at least the remnants of it are still controlling the world. You might not call it European anymore.
We'll call it Western society.
Yeah, because it's American.
The neo-European style.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of other factors behind that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Various things we
may
want to put a pin in that and explore that as a topic for another day. This is a conflict of ideas within a campaign rather than a conflict of, like, sword sort of thing.
Yeah. So the sea can be, like, it can be both. It can be a bounded area itself, bounded by land and having all these different places you can travel to on it. Or it can be like the edge of the map and say, don't go past this sea.
Or you can also work it as a selectively permeable membrane. Because let's face it, we are talking about a D&D campaign where there are many creatures and ways to breathe under the water. So it could just be that, that you've got like the mermaids down there, and this Ahuagin, and those crab people that probably don't taste as good as crab looks. But that's cannibalism, which is a topic where I don't want us to discuss at this point.
I bet crab people are so tasty.
They probably are freaking succulent. But, and there's all this stuff down there, so it could just be that the barrier of the ocean isn't really a barrier once you hit a point where you can breathe down there. It becomes an entirely secondary point in the campaign. Yeah, and that's something that's... I mean, it exists in D&D, but they never do much with it. There's no spot where you have like a wonderful reed city built out, and the aquatic races come up to trade with the land-based ones, and they both get the stuff they want. Yeah, I had a little bit. Do you remember Verdilvia? There was some stuff in that. Yeah. What are the water pixies? The naiads. Naiads. Yeah. They had like a kingdom basically in a very shallow area of the river. Shallow, slow-moving. Yeah, I got some of their food, but I never ate it. Although it did radiate magic. I was kind of intrigued about that. I'd never got the time to study it. Oh, I don't even remember. I've got it listed on my character sheet still, but I put probably rotten. I think what the magic aura probably was Nistel's magic aura. If I was serving food to people I'd want to impress, I'd put a magic aura on the cake. Like, we have the spell. Why not we use it? There's a lot of fun to be had with those fun little low-end spells. I can do more stuff with a basic invisibility spell than most people can do with an entire wizard's arsenal. Okay, nice boast. There are so many things to do for a creative mind. Yeah. Especially if someone was to give me stats on a bear trap. Oh, the things you can do with it. Invisibility affects objects, too, you know.
Yeah, invisible bear trap? Oh, that sounds... that sounds bad.
Cast invisibility on, say, a door. Then taunt people on the other side. So, you know, you're on a chase. They're chasing you. You turn, you know, you go around. You close the door behind you. Invisibility. And then you watch as they run straight right into the door. Bam!
Don't they get something? They get a reflex save or something?
I
guess it'd be high DC, but...
I don't think there's much for the whole thing, for what they can do if they're going straight for it, if they see you and they're chasing you.
Yeah.
It'll probably wear off right after that sort of thing, because, I mean, interaction with, and that's interaction when you crash your head into there.
And how much damage does, like, running full tilt at a wall, how much damage does that
I'd still only put it as 1d6, but there is a lot of hurt to your pride there. That's got to be like 3d6 pride damage.
Yeah. Yeah, is that a thing? We were going to talk about ability scores, but I guess not. Probably
that's a
we won't get to
that's
it today.
a pseudo ability score. You know,
This
it's
is
like,
possible
you took pride damage. Maybe a couple points of non-lethal morale damage too.
Yeah.
You've really shown him what's what.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, you could, if you wanted to humiliate a person, you could even try doing that on a section of wall in, say, their bathroom while they're using it. Hey, all of a sudden there are bathrooms in the D&D campaign world. I cast the invisibility on the bathroom stall.
Somehow I don't see D&D heroes as being particularly, like, embarrassed about their bodily functions. Maybe, like, some of them. Maybe
it's the unexpected thing about, oh, now everyone can see you on the pot. It's the, I'm, you know, defenseless, and now everyone can see what I'm doing sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's that sort of stuff. And that's basically the fun you have with the invisibility spell once you get the higher end stuff. You use that for pranks and giggles. Like using the polymorph spell to turn one of your teammates into a horse. You sell the horse for decent cash, polymorph wears off, and the guy just leaves.
That's a good scam.
It is a good scam.
Although
hard to pull off, you know, without a little bit of prior planning. A little bit of coordination. Cast it on the rogue so they can sneak out without anybody seeing it.
Are there material components for polymorphs?
I don't think it costs too much.
Okay, as long as it costs less than the horse, what you're selling the horse for.
Yeah. Or whatever you're turning the person into. You could have some interesting fun with that.
Yeah.
You could use that. You could actually get a higher price because the horse in question could do tricks like counting. You know, and you could prove that this is a very good horse. It demands top coin.
Yeah.
So you take your gold, maybe even platinum, and away you go. And all of a sudden, the horse turns back to the rogue when no one's looking, and then stealths out.
Yeah, but
you may want to leave town very soon thereafter.
Want to, stay mobile and.
Or I suppose if you don't want to be too greedy about it and see it only as like a sort of trick sort of thing, instead of selling the horse for cash, you trade the horse for a couple other horses. Say, well, one horse is good, and this horse can do all sorts of tricks, but we need 3 horses. So the one horse just won't do. I'm willing to trade the 3 regular horses, that you have for the one great horse that we have. And then later on, you escape out of town on 3 horses. In which case, this is really more, of a pride thing there too than actual, they took all my cash. It's like they swindled me of 3 horses. Horse thieves. Dang it.
Yeah, pride, but basic, like not liking being stolen from.
Well, I mean, there's that, but it's, I guess maybe it's a little semantic, but it's a bit different in that case. Lots of fun to be had though with some of the lower end spells.
Yeah.
But yes, boundaries, sort of thing. You can even put boundaries on spell use, like just by saying, okay, in this campaign, you're going to be in this kingdom. Necromancy is forbidden in this kingdom. I'm warning you now. You may encounter spells with necromancy in them, but if the average person, especially law enforcement, catches you, there will be a penalty to pay, potentially of your life.
Yeah, and law enforcement would have to be wizards or clerics with detect magic, basically. Because with detect magic, you can detect the school of a spell, right?
You can do that with a spellcraft check. So technically, it could even be an expert in this case.
Okay.
But it wouldn't. I don't think you even need to make a check if, say, the sheriff catches you raising the dead. Dude, that's necromancy.
Yeah, but catches you in the act. Like, if you're walking around accompanied by skeletons,
that's necromantic effect. You're going into jail.
But can you prove that you were the one who raised the skeletons? Maybe they just happened to be hanging around.
I'm pretty certain they can cover that in the rules too. Associating with the undead, if not a crime in most campaign settings, is definitely a theological problem. If the law enforcement isn't going to get you on that one, chances are the priests are not going to take a kind view to what you're doing.
Yeah, I suppose. But what if, like, the priest comes around and you're like, oh crap, priests, and you like you smash your skeletons. I'm killing these skeletons.
That might be a bluff check.
Well, if you're actually hitting them.
Yeah, but if they're not attacking back, they're just standing there, or taking off the helmet to let you smash it. Which is an interesting sight in and of itself. God, we got to get an artist friend.
Yeah.
Just for those fun little images, just doodles. That's all we're asking.
I wonder though, like in a D&D world, you don't really because skeletons and zombies often will have a neutral alignment. So if they're uncommanded, what do
they're
they?
Neutral evil in this case.
Okay.
For D&D, they had to switch it at 3.0
Oh, they
to
did switch
3.5.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking if they're uncommanded, they might not necessarily attack people.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why they put them over to neutral evil. It's one of those things they had back in 2nd edition. Any undead creature has an inherent dislike for the living, and association with them, even in the case of commanding the undead, corrupts the user morally and will lead them to a negative end. This is particularly prevalent in the Ravenloft campaign setting.
Yeah.
So, it's just something they kind of had to put some extra rules in, and one of the better things that they put in for 3.0 to 3.5.
Yeah, but I think in Eberron, it's a little less evil.
Yes, with the elves there, because they have their history for it.
And I think basically, I think it would be different because in Ravenloft, if you
dark powers checks.
If you create a skeleton or a zombie and then you just let it go and do whatever it wants to do.
Oh yeah, that's at least 2 dark powers checks for most characters.
But that zombie or skeleton is probably going to attack living creatures. Whatever. Yeah. I imagine in Eberron, though, if you raise a skeleton or a zombie, it'll probably just shuffle around if it's not commanded. It probably won't necessarily attack unless it's specifically, programmed to do that.
I think I recall some stuff about them being inherently unliking of that. I'd have to check the sources, though. I think I recall something in Magic of Eberron mentioning some of the undead-filled lands is that just wandering skeletons and zombies that attack wayward people.
Yeah, and the other problem, of course, this has come up a lot of times with zombies and skeletons too, is that, and you see this in zombie movies, is why don't the zombies attack each other? How are they so, they're so dumb, they can't climb stairs or...
Mind you, those, I will point out right here, because I know I can hear some people in the future saying it, those are Romero zombies, not the Russo zombies from the Return of the Living Dead, where, if I may counter you in 3 words, send more paramedics.
Oh.
Have you ever seen them?
I didn't see that.
There's some paramedics come up to help out some people that have been exposed to a gas and aren't doing well. Physiologically, they're dead. Mm-hmm. And the paramedics go back to get the stuff like the gurneys to put them on, and the zombies attack them and kill and eat them. And then later on, as when they're chewing on the brains and all that, they hear a thing, from the radio dispatch. Come in, what's the situation? Everything going okay there. And one of the zombies actually picks up the radio receiver. Goes, we hear you. Send more paramedics. And they actually send more paramedics. And then later, send the police. And they get the police, and it's just them getting it's basically ordering takeout.
That's really weird. Okay.
Not as weird as the merkin the one lady was wearing when she was dancing on the graves earlier in the film. But yes, it's a thoroughly weird film all told.
Yeah, that's cool. But I don't picture zombies working together that way, but...
Oh, trust me, you will after seeing this. They
Okay.
work together, and they work wonderfully. And the whole talking thing, I think it opens up to a very nice secondary type of zombie, more along the lines of a D&D ghoul. If you really want to have fun playing a D&D ghoul as a DM, I recommend anyone out there to review the Return of the Living Dead series, especially the lower-end number ones. The higher-end number stuff gets predictably bad as sequels go.
Yeah, ghouls make more sense because I think they retain an intelligence score.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
And I do note in the original Night of the Living Dead, they were never referred to as zombies. They were referred to on the television as ghouls.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, if you're talking about the symbolistic version, it can be, basically it looks like, yeah, kind of deadish people. You can't really tell if because they're able to move, so they have that much of their brain.
They do from the first movie, which I do recommend everybody watch as well. It's now actually public domain, so there's really no excuse not to find a copy and watch it because it's completely legal to download, provided it's the black and white one. The colorized version does have some rights. Ted Turner or something, I think owns the rights.
Okay, yeah.
But yes, they actually the zombies there display greater intelligence when they're within numbers. The guy mentions 20 of them taking out a car, sort of thing. And so, it's something if you really want to work out is a nice variant zombie where when they become a part of a group, they get like some sort of undead gestalt mentality where they become smarter and more dangerous.
Okay.
Which I think could work out nicely for like a campaign thing because, if you're doing a Night of the Living Dead campaign, you encounter 1 or 2 zombies here. They're the low-level stuff. They're the easy to defeat. And then later on you encounter them in groups where because they're in the groups with this, whatever, we'll call it an extraordinary ability of theirs, or maybe it's supernatural, they become more difficult to fight. Because, we'll work this as a D&D modern campaign because all of a sudden they remember how to use guns. So then all of a sudden you're dealing with zombies.
With guns?
Hey, it's a point-and-click interface. You really don't need a lot of intelligence to know how to use a gun.
I don't know. I probably can't even use a gun.
Dude, it's point-and-click.
Yeah, but load and...
Okay, they might not know how to load it. Unless it's like military zombies, then they might have enough training where they'd remember how to do that even dead. But the basic zombies, you might have an interesting encounter with, like, they're coming out of the gun shop, and yeah, they got guns.
Zombies with guns. Well, I'd have to
Don't
see
tell
it.
me you would not enjoy that scene in a movie. Where the guy's, I've got a bat, I can destroy them, they're moving slow, and then one zombie just raises a gun and blows his freaking head off. You would love that scene. You would dig that scene. You would look it up later on YouTube. If it was done right, like they get the angle and all that.
Maybe if it was done right, I don't know. I don't know.
I say blow his head off because it seems like the right thing for a zombie movie.
Yeah,
If you want to do it a little like earlier in the film, like he's a primary character, shoot like the stick he's got, or bat or I don't know, second-rate katana, just blast that, in half sort of thing, and just to show how dangerous they can be. But I prefer just blowing his head off because it seems like a zombie thing to do.
I feel like I would be very angry if I went to a zombie movie and the zombies. I guess it might be in the trailer if that was a selling point of the movie. But if I went to a zombie movie and the zombies just suddenly, now they can shoot guns.
Well, they can use basic things, You could see a zombie like picking up a stick and just smashing stuff like that, right? You see them.
Well, I can barely see that even as
really?
Zombies. But I guess my idea of zombies is not. Yeah, it's not.
I figure you don't need a lot of intelligence to figure out how to work a doorknob. So I figure zombies should be able to use doors. Might be very confused about elevators. Eventually they'll make it to the right floor. Eventually. But
okay.
I like them with the hint of intelligence.
Okay, so yeah.
Again, it always depends on what kind of zombies you have. Are these like reanimated dead via magic? Is it based on some sort of chemical? Or is hell too full and that the unrighteous dead start walking the earth? In which case those ones should have some very good and very malignant intelligence about them.
Yeah, it would be cool if they knew things that they shouldn't be able to know, like if they could sense, like see through doors or something like that.
Well, what I've always wanted to see, especially in D&D, is something like zombies having the ability to detect, the living at a decent range.
Yeah.
So that in the purpose for the group zombies, that game, when you get like more than 4 zombies together and they can sense the living out to, so many like mile radius when you get the group large enough, and that they can actively hunt down the living just by basically following where they know the living is.
Yeah.
You could maybe work it as
cool.
like a scent-based thing. You could have some zombie dogs hunting them down too.
Zombie dogs. Yeah. All right.
Because honestly, I'm a little tired of zombies only hitting humanity. Wouldn't it be interesting? You finally get away from like the city. You're driving out there. Bam! Your car slams into a deer, and then the deer keeps moving. It's a zombie deer.
What is it with you and deer?
Well, it could be moose too. I think deer. Have you ever seen like a deer show its teeth? Those things are scary.
Well, I know, like, deer skulls can be used in horror movies and stuff, and they can be pretty freaky.
They can be pretty freaky. I think that works out nice. Could you imagine, like, a deer, like, you shoot it with a shotgun, face gets all blown apart, you see the skull sort of thing, and it still keeps on coming? Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be alright. As long as the deer don't, like, get up on their back legs and grab a gun with their hooves and start shooting.
Ooh, that might be
yeah,
something...
let me guess, you like that.
That might be something for a different kind of thing, like more of an Evil Dead possesses with unholy malignant sort of thing, and then it corrupts. Yeah. So you get something like that. That would work, and I think that would make for a very interesting scene in like a cabin in the woods with a horrible, evil, malignant intelligence going on.
Yeah, and it has the deer. Yeah.
Yes, because let's face it, the one thing I never really understood much about for the original Evil Dead movie was it wants to kill the people that called it forth. There's got to be animals out in the woods. Shouldn't it have like done something with them too? Because it was able to get the humans. Or it was never really discussed. Could the spirits of the dead only possess of their own kind? Because they're supposed to be like dead humans, or I think something like humans, and so they could only possess other humans, or why couldn't they just really freaking mess up with other stuff?
Yeah.
Because they were able to do some interesting things, like especially in the second one when Ash really starts going insane. Or of course that might have just been his insanity taking over. They didn't do anything about that. He's just going freaking bug nut.
Yeah, I remember hearing a discussion about like how you don't necessarily animals must die, right? All animals die.
Yes.
So they must die in the woods and stuff.
Yes.
So, what happens to their bodies?
I've actually seen that decomposition stuff. Most bodies of even all large things, such as like deer, wolves, the big animals you think of when you think of big animals in nature, really last a week, maybe 2 weeks at most. There's a lot of good recycling. You get the scavengers, you get the small animals, you get the insects, the maggots. The whole thing cleans out in about a week. Oh,
I remember I saw a video on YouTube where they did a time lapse.
Time lapse, yes, and you can see it decrepify and then really go out in about a week. Provided the ecology is healthy, you get a damaged ecology, could take a season. I remember my dad actually watching. There's a herd of deer that comes by his property out in the boonies, and one of them died, and he had a good time watching what happened to the corpse as the days went on.
He had a good time. That's his entertainment.
Well, not exactly like he was eating it, with like a bag of popcorn, just watching it. But he learned from watching and seeing how much changed day by day, and what he could see in the area at the time. So because that was a secondary disturbance area that he was in, it took about a month for it to fully, just go down to bones that were scattered about.
And that's why in the movies, when they do it, in the cartoons especially, when they do a scene in the desert, there's always that dead cow skeleton or whatever.
Oh yeah, well, there's also the reference to I think it was the Oregon Trail with their diseased water holes.
Oh yeah, that
thing.
too.
And I think that hit the American mentality pretty hard, and so they keep imagining that as just like the dangers, even the water you find you cannot drink. Da 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 da.
Yep.
But yeah, I never understood why you didn't have some sort of horrible. Oh, I understand why they didn't have horrible deer. Their budget was pretty low. I've got the Bruce Campbell's notes on that. Good read. If Chins Could Kill, give it a good look up if you can find it. Borrow it from a friend. Good read. Says what was going on in the background. But I understand why they didn't. But plot-wise, within the setting, I don't understand why you didn't see horrible, creepy, freaking deer doing stuff like trying to break down and crash through. Unless, I guess you could make an interesting argument about the innately sacrosanct nature of a wild animal. How because it is simply a wild creature, it doesn't have morality and thus cannot effectively be corrupted in the same way humanity can, and thus the evil forces that were called up could not possess the animal corpses.
I guess, yeah, fair enough. Like, I don't know where that fits into mythology, because, like, kind of folk mythology would say that animals are moral creatures, like, in one way or another.
Well, maybe moral isn't the right word for it, because let's say a wolf is a natural creature, but it still kills an awful lot to support. Yeah. It is primal, and so these innately primal things have their own spirituality to it. They are as was intended of them.
Yeah, sure. But if you look at kind of werewolf stories and whatnot, like, wolves definitely get
a bad rap.
Yeah, the bad rap.
Yeah.
But you, like, if you're going by this kind of supernatural idea where it's all about the ideas behind things, and like that Platonic version of wolves, basically wolves as seen through the human perspective, through the human...
A nocturnal predator that preys
lens.
upon your foodstuffs.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be evil in that sense. But yeah, if it's an evil that's kind of not based on humans, or kind of, I don't know, like...
Human perception thereof them.
Because the other thing I'll say about humans, too, is that human morality basically only applies to humans.
Should only apply to humans.
Because we say that, murderers are bad, and, like, all that stuff.
But the wolf killing is natural.
And the wolf killing is
technically
natural.
a murderer.
Yeah, but if you were to step away from humans and look at humans as kind of biological entities, and they have things going on in their brain and whatnot, that murderer, basically, I mean, he's driven by some kind of biological urge. He has the power, like,
to not do
it, to resist. But is that natural? Like, I don't know.
I think if you have the mentality to think about whether or not consequences of your actions are good or bad, you then hit an entirely different realm from what the animals do.
Okay.
A wolf does not question, why do I kill? For the wolf, it is hungry. It must feed to survive. That means it takes down the prey. But it knows not to take down prey that could be dangerous to it. You don't go hunting bear cubs when you're a wolf.
And I guess the problem with the human outliers, the human psychopaths and murderers and whatnot, is they're in their activities, they're basically hurting themselves, because humans have such this reliance on our social structure that if you do step outside of it and start, like, breaking that social contract, like by killing your fellow humans, that's gonna hurt you in the fairly short run.
Well, actually, I remember seeing a study on that showing that if the percentage of the population who are psychopathic, manipulators and all that, is less than 1%, they actually come out ahead. So it's a secondary strategy within the ecology, the human ecology in this case.
Oh. Yeah, I've heard that too. It's a freaky thought.
Yeah. I've always preferred to think of them more like, you occasionally hear in the news, cougar sighting in town, has been, attacked a kid. The kid got out okay. Will need some stitches. The cougar had to be hunted down and put to sleep, or culled, whatever you want to call it. It was shot in the head and killed because it was a danger to humanity.
Yeah.
In this case, I see the people who commit such heinous crimes against their own type to be something similar.
We don't necessarily. I don't know if you would advocate capital punishment. We don't necessarily do capital punishment, but we at least remove them from the ability, like we put them in jail.
Well, that's because you can do that with humans. We have a whole system put in place. We don't really have a system put in place to try and rehabilitate cougars. By the way, the cougars who do wind up attacking stuff like kids tend to be the ones that are like very hungry and on the verge of starvation. They're starving. If they don't get a meal soon, they will die. Yeah. And that's why they're attacking people.
They do it out of desperation or out of sickness, or...
Which is what you could say happens with a lot of people who do commit crimes. Nobody decides, when I grow up, I'm going to be a master criminal. It's something you wind up doing in order to make ends meet.
I suppose. Well...
With the exception of the occasional person who is definitely, aberrant with their mentality and decides to go, I'm going to find this person and I'm going to wear their skin like a dress.
Yeah.
Those people don't apply in this sort of mentality picture I'm showing here.
Well, I don't know. Are we... this world that we're talking about almost isn't our modern world. It might be the Wild West might be a little more like that, because you could kind of make a living out of being that robber murderer kind of guy.
But in most cases, it was just something they did because their original plans for life didn't work out, and they said, "Hey, I got good reflexes," and they've got money and bad reflexes. No cop, nobody to stop me. Let's go for it.
Yeah. And then you don't hear about the ones who
tried it,
failed.
got shot, and got buried. Who was he? No one knows. He got hit in the face. Came into town yesterday. We had horrible reflexes. He fumbled on his gun and went across the floor. That was it for him.
Yeah. It's like those towns with the graveyards that are just growing like faster than the town.
Yeah. Although, there's something you really got to sit down and think about. Like, if you're in a town like that, the dead are growing faster than the living here. Do I really want to stay in this town? Maybe I'll just sell what I've got and mosey on down.
Further west?
Yeah.
Because most of the people in the town are probably... Well, the whole Wild West experience.
The expansion philosophy. Head west.
Yeah, if you
I
fail...
hear that San Francisco town seems to be mighty nice. Maybe I'll just mosey on down that way.
But yeah, what happened if people got disgraced when they got to San Francisco?
There's a movie called Wagons East. I believe
Wagons East, yeah.
Yes.
They went back east again.
I hate this place. Let's go back east. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, it might have been a realistic option. Yeah.
Maybe once you go far enough, then you start going like north or south, and that's how you get people winding up in like Washington State. Everyone was going for California, and they're like, I hate the weather here.
You know what?
Fires
Maybe
everywhere.
Idaho. Idaho's a good, like, crappy. Well, not crappy. I shouldn't say crappy.
Idaho's a nice place.
All of our Idaho listeners.
It's not a place I think most people would have decided to, hitch their wagons towards. It's something where places I don't like it going this way. I don't like this trail. Let's go north. They end up in Idaho. Let's plant potatoes. It looks good. The soil's nice. We'll stop here. I haven't heard anything about people trying to steal our stuff. Let's just stop here. Good enough.
That's something I never did. Now I regret it. I never read the Wikipedia article on Idaho, because I bet Idaho has an interesting history.
Probably at least as good as Washington State history, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, we have gone a little bit over 90 minutes.
Okay.
We've had an interesting discussion about boundaries, and we didn't get to our other discussion topics, but that's okay. That's okay.
We'll save them for another episode.
I hope that all of our listeners have enjoyed listening to us. We have an email address at thesimulationist@gmail.com. We also have a website at thesimulationist.com. You can also find us on iTunes. Type in The Simulation in the search thingy. And we're also on YouTube at The Simulationist.
Search us up. Find us. Send us a note.
And I Twitter at Bootbuckle. You can search me on as Josh Treleaven also.
I've considered the concept of twittering before. I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Okay, so we'll probably get you on Twitter and at least have a handle so people can send messages that way.
Or at least I can send messages out to others. I do read Twitter from time to time. I see what Kim.com's doing. I like reading what his status updates are.
Very cool.
Yes,
okay.
He's the mega upload guy.
Yes. Yeah.
He's got a lot of trial stuff going on, and oh my goodness, is it entertaining to read just how badly they've botched up that case. They did everything wrong. Plus, he's got a new product coming out, sort of thing. I'm intrigued to see how it goes. So.
Okay, yeah.
So I at least follow it. So I guess if you get me on Twitter and I eventually get a handle, maybe I'll start, putting up notes and working myself into the system.
What we need to do, though, because what happens on Twitter is that when people start to get known, hopefully this podcast gets us known. Fingers crossed. But people, somebody else will steal your name and they'll be like, I am Ryan Kirkby. Actually, there might be more than one Ryan Kirkby.
There are several Ryan Kirkbys, most of which also went into the field of biology.
One of them might already have a Twitter of your name, but
that's okay. I'll use one of my other handles. I got a few spare ones I keep. I reuse. So
yeah, that's cool. So, listeners, if you have thoughts on boundaries or thoughts on anything else we talked about in this podcast or anything else.
If you got an idea you want us to mull over, you think we might be able to produce some fertile ideas, by all means, send us the idea.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely looking for ideas for content.
Not that we're, hurting for ideas ourselves. We have a nice couple backup ones.
We can go on forever.
And, it's one of the things that you spend some time thinking about in the shower, you get a good idea to pop up. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
yes, please send us ideas and comments and questions and everything.
Critiques, too, man. We got to know what we're doing right. We got to know what we're doing wrong.
And thanks for listening, and send us mail.
Take care out there.